said, how did Baba compare to all these famous people that you met? You met all the great ones of the 20th century. You interviewed them and everything. Well, how was Baba by comparison? He said Baba was the most dynamic person he had ever met.
Hmm.
You got the impression that Baba was just, I mean, they were just people compared to Baba. So just as a human being, he was he was so dynamic. Yeah. And he was coming there, you know, uh, just quite skeptical. But Baba's dynamic quality was just uh, too extraordinary to witness. Yeah.
Well, I think we might have just in another time and place.
What's that?
I think we might have just in another time and place because I sure know that I am filled with him.
Yeah.
And I remember what I was before him and who I am now that I
Oh,
know
I know.
him. And it's just, I can't even really explain it. Look, it's just such a different way of life. And I have so much gratitude that Diane went on the same path with me because it's just, well, Angela, and Jeff, to have someone who's living with you who also is there with you, it's an amazing
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, the chant. I mean, that means it's not like you influenced her to follow Baba. She already had her independent life with Baba, and Baba got you both together before you even knew anything about him,
Most
and yet
likely,
and yet he arranged it all.
it's amazing to me.
Yeah. No.
Diane, somehow I lost the picture here. Oh, I know what I do. There it is.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt that, Jeff, you're in the same boat, but there's no doubt that I couldn't possibly do the kind of Baba work I'm doing without a partner who understood the importance.
Yeah,
Can you imagine? I mean, I'm putting in
I
like
know.
whatever, 30 hours a week or more, and
And
then
these
I
are
work
all
part.
arranged,
I work as an acupuncturist. You know what I mean? Like, if Cliff didn't get it, it would not be possible.
There was a
We're
Baba.
listening. We're just going to go off camera. Sorry.
What,
Yeah,
honey?
Oh, no,
we're
Baba
talking to
was.
ourselves, Jeff.
What's that? Baba was driving through, being driven through London at one point, and there was a couple with him in the car. And as they were going down these streets, Baba pointed to a second floor apartment, and they looked up, and that's where they had lived when they were first married,
Oh
long
my
before they
God.
even
Oh,
knew of
wow.
Baba.
Baba knew.
Yeah, long before they even knew of Baba. He was already.
He'd planned it all.
Every once in a while, Baba would do such things.
I don't have like the most dramatic fireworks kind of Baba story, but I do have that kind of story where, like, as you look back, as I look back, he'd laid out all the trail of breadcrumbs. It was like a
Yeah,
very, like, in retrospect, it's totally clear, but in the forward direction, it was just like the image that comes to me is that, like, it's like walking into a lake. You start really shallow and then the water's rising, and next thing you know, it's like whoop over the head,
yep,
and that's it. You're a goner. That's it.
you are. Yeah, I remember.
So so it's a pretty straightforward story. My ex-husband was a Baba lover, and it was the most innocent thing where I was young, and every time I asked a question, he would have some nice answer, or then sometimes he would pull down a Baba book and read me a quote, and that would flatten that question, and that sort of thing. And then I started wanting to go into town to see Darwin or Bauji, when he was in town, or any of the other great speakers. And next thing you know, I was getting involved, and I I got George involved, and he was starting to lead discourse meetings. He hadn't been involved with the community in some time. So then we finally came down to the center, and so my first visit to the center, there were all these people telling these, in the Lakeview kitchen, there were just people who were hanging around telling their Baba stories, and it was just one after another, story after story of Baba doing something that showed how different everyone's story was, like it was so important to me at the beginning to hear how different everyone's Baba story was, but also how perfect for each person, like just so tailored to that particular person and the way they needed to hear about Baba, just like this perfection of circumstance to make it just so. So then I go along and I'm just having the most wonderful time, and as we're flying back, I kind of lean over to George on the flight back, and I was just like, I think I'm a Baba lover. So for me, it was like a very, just sort of like simple, nothing fancy. It's just like a flip side of a page of a book or something, nothing much to say. But years go by, I'm getting on with my life. I've done acupuncture school. I've done all sorts of things. I'm now kind of working as a professional, and I read Darwin's book. And in Darwin's book, he lists all these actual addresses of places Baba was. So I'm reading along, and it's all like, yay, this is great, this is great. Boom, it hit me like a thunderbolt. Then that was sort of a thunderbolt where Baba was staying. Well, he was in Scarsdale and visiting Ivy Deuce's apartment, and that was 33 West 67th. And the most amazing thing is that I was working in that building at 33 West 67th. I mean, like, it's the most ridiculous thing. How is that possible,
Yeah.
So every day, I was in acupuncture school, and I'd been looking for a part-time job, and I was just like, oh, I don't know. It needed to be flexible. I needed to be, enough per hour. And, I was just going through this silly, like, I'll never find a job. And I see this little ad in the paper, and it's just, a guy-gal Friday, which is what they call it in New York, someone to do, like, odd jobs and come to this address and go up to the penthouse and yada yada. The guy was a wonderful boss, very, very sweet. The amazing thing is, this was a part-time job that at first was like 4 afternoons a week. As I got busier with school, it was sort of 3 and then 2. Almost every day, almost every weekday, I was going into this building, 33 West 67th. I was going up the elevator that Baba was going up and down. I was getting off at a different floor, but,
Yeah.
Ivy Deuce had the 3rd floor, but each apartment was a clear story. So it was 2 floors, the 2nd floor of which was open. And the reason I know that is because my boss at that time was, he put together a little family tree, and he'd like gotten all these photos from all his relatives and distant cousins and whatever. And one of my little jobs was to help him put it all together into a sort of genealogy. He had some software or something that we could set it up on. It was me and another guy. We were both working on this. And so we were invited to the family reunion at his place. So his apartment was on the 1st floor, and it was set up exactly like all the other apartments in that building. It was a big 1st floor, and then a clear story 2nd, where you could look down, you could see the 1st floor. And then the 3rd floor, of course, was Ivy Deuce's, and then she could look down from the 4th, which was the library that Don Stevens went up to. Do you remember the story of Don Stevens? So Billy Eaton met Baba there for the first time. Don Stevens met Baba there. So Don Stevens tells a story of how the very first time he meets Baba, he's told to wait. So so he feels this strange emotion, and as a man of that time, he can't he can't really figure out what that is. Like he's about to cry, and he's like torn all in pieces because he's going to cry. So he kind of finds a quiet space by going upstairs, and he's like trying not to cry, and he's totally like moved and torn apart, and like finally it's his time to come meet Baba. Or or maybe he was just deciding he was leaving. I forget exactly the details, but as he's leaving, he sees that everyone. Oh, okay, he'd met Baba. Anyway, he was told to disappear, but he saw that everyone was in the living room listening to Baba, and Baba was facing. He was on a couch with his leg up because this is 52, and he had his leg in a cast, and he was facing away from the door, right? Because his leg was up, and so he's facing away. And so Don Stevens is sort of like, well, I was told to go away, but I really can't leave. And so he sort of creeps up, he snuggles down, nobody can see him, that kind of a because he's not supposed to be there, and Baba can't see me. So he just sort of sits under the arm of the couch, and as he's there, he's in this sort of daze, and he's just like, how perfect was this whole day? And he's bringing his hand up into this gesture of perfection, and Baba, at the same time, whatever story he was telling, because Don Stevens wasn't really paying attention, whatever story or thing that Baba was talking about, Baba, very painfully, his leg is up, very painfully twists his body, turns around, and his fingers meet exactly at the same time that Don Stevens' fingers meet in the sign of perfection. So now Don is really, his mind is frickin' blown. He's got an engineer's mind, so he's now like calculating what are the statistical probabilities of the chances of that happening, that at the same time I'm doing this, Baba's doing this. And as he's sort of like picturing, like, how did that happen, he's thinking it out loud again. Baba twists his body behind him and brings his hand to the same sign of perfection at the same time, second time in a row. Don Stevens just gives up. He's just like, oh my God. I mean, and then at that point, he's just in a daze. He doesn't remember anything that was said. But very soon, Baba was getting trundled up to go out. So they put him in this little, I think it was a Civil War wheelchair or something. It was really tiny, really narrow. And having been in that building, I can understand why they used such a small wheelchair, because that elevator that went up and down was tiny. And that's so cool that I know, you know what I mean? So they're getting Bob onto the chair, and they're wheeling him out. And because Don was so close to the door, he actually was right behind Baba when they were leaving, because you know how last in is first out, right? So they trundle Baba along that little hallway. They're going to go down the elevator, and Don Stevens ends up kind of one person behind Baba. And now he's just like, wow, remember what happened? He's just like remembering when I went like this, Baba went, and there he is, Baba with his leg out on a wheelchair, turns around again, a third time. His fingers meet exactly when Don Stevens' fingers meet. And can you imagine?
Oh.
So you know, they go on with their day, but that's the part that I really, really remember about Don Stevens' story. But it's just wild, because my story of coming to Baba it's like, it's nothing. There's nothing much to say. But in hindsight, I got to have that direct pilgrimage of that spot where Baba was going up and down that elevator, and I have an idea of what that apartment looks like, and all of that. You know, it just really feels like there was a trail of breadcrumbs and the net that came up. You know, that Val talks about.
That was the Hotel des Artistes, right?
It was, yeah, I think that's the name of the building.
There's
Yeah.
a very famous restaurant in there, the Cafe
That's
de
right.
Ortiz. That's
It was right next to it, I think, or something.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and there was a fire in there, and somebody was trapped in the kitchen, and they said they saw a man in a long white sadra, and he helped him escape.
what?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I know, because those girls came from England, and they were going to every place that Baba had been in New York, and
Wow.
so I was there for part of it. And they went to the Hotel des Artistes, and they went into the lobby, started yelling, J Mama, J Mama. Doorman was escorting them out. It's very, very upscale building.
Very, very fancy. And
And
these apartments are huge. I think the apartment part of it had its own entrance, and whether the restaurant was actually in that building was a separate entrance or if it was.
Rudolph Valentino lived there, the chic,
Ooh,
you know.
really?
Yeah, and also some guy that killed himself with Queen Victoria's husband's revolver. He was a lord, and he was ill, and he had Albert's revolver, and he killed himself.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, so they said it's very haunted.
I wouldn't doubt it. It's definitely got history. It has that kind of a feel.
Yeah, beautiful building though.
Very, very gorgeous. You come in and it's like marble tiles and this gorgeous curling staircase that goes upstairs, but then there's this elevator that's old school that you have to like pull the gates across. So
I
there was
don't know
like
if
the
they
two gates.
replaced that, but yeah, the restaurant's amazing. I went
Wow.
there once, and it's just beautiful.
It didn't even occur to me to try to go into that restaurant. It was too fancy.
Yeah, yeah, it's really lovely. I don't know if it's still around, but
It's right near that park. Is that Columbus Park?
Central Park.
Central Park.
Yeah.
It's just like a block or less than a block away. Yeah, it's less than a block.
Oh, it's right near the park.
Yeah, it's like two buildings or three, whatever.
Yeah.
And I would go that way to get to the PO, so
Mhm.
very pretty.
Yeah.
Very pretty section of town.
This on the east side, right?
No, it's on the
33 West, 67th.
Oh,
West
West 67th. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that Columbus Avenue is,
It's it's nearer to Central Park West.
yeah.
Yeah. I just send a picture of it. I'll go take a picture.
Very beautiful building. Yeah, if you're in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
One of those old school buildings. They just don't build like that anymore. Yeah, it's fun to tell
Yeah.
that story.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. All, different ways Baba. I mean, the Mandalay Hall was really, much of the time, besides people asking Erich questions or Mani questions, but a lot of it was hearing people's Baba stories because the Mandalay actually just loved hearing how people came to Baba because they're basically this is this is their this is the most beautiful aspect of their entire life is how Baba reeled them in.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Erich would remember, it was incredible. He could remember all the details of someone's story 5 years back. I mean, just because he could tell it. I would listen to the same story and I wouldn't be able to recount it as accurately.
Yeah, it's
But
amazing
he
actually.
took it in. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we're glad that we can record these things because we're not recording as well as Erich's memory can.
Are you recording this?
I'm recording this just for
Yeah.
the heck of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, well, I'm going to go.
All right.
We go
It
to
was great to see you.
Yeah.
everybody. See you tomorrow.
Jai
Yeah.
Baba.
Bye-bye.
Yep. See you, Payam.
Oh, look, some people were listening.
Yeah.
Nice to hear.
Yeah,
Yay, bye.
good to
Mm.
see you. And what do you keep Glenn in a cage back there?
He's hardly home, you know, he works in the emergency room.
Oh.
So he works like, 15-hour shifts sometimes.
Oh,
Oh.
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's intense. But you know, he tells me, he says, I don't know what's happening, but I feel Baba's presence. And the patients are the ones he sees it reflected.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, the dog's in the background, but it tells me stories that are just surreal. Like patients who normally would be very like anti certain treatments, and they just look at him and they say, I feel like you're Church Glenn. I don't know. I just want to do what you tell me to do. And he says, all I do is think of Baba in my mind, and he takes over, and
Yeah.
I'm just doing my job, and they feel.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
he says, it's happening more and more. Like 10 years ago, he didn't have these experiences.
Yeah.
How sweet is that?
And they recognize the wholesomeness and the,
So, yeah.
and the
I
beautiful.
think everything shifted when the pandemic started. That was the beginning of it. You know,
Yeah.
I agree.
you know,
Yeah.
by isolating everyone, but bringing us
Yeah.
together through technology.
And through love, I mean, I think that we're much more attuned to love now because we really see the opposite much more clearly. Yeah, oh, that's
Good.
sweet.
Well, I better go.
Gorgeous,
Look
Marcia.
at
Jeff's, look at.
Look at that.
Let's
What?
see.
Yeah, Marcia, you are doing beautifully.
Love the colors.
Oh,
Orchid. Yeah.
It's an orchid, beautiful.
yeah.
I've got an orchid opening. I've got
What
buds.
was the saying that when Tom Riley was first introduced to Baba by John Bass, he said, "This is Tom Riley, an artist from Woodstock or from New York." And what do you recall what Baba said there? He said, "Yoga in the East is something a means of attaining the truth, whereas art in the West is the thing that opens up the sacred space within." Something like that.
Yes. It is a beautiful quote.
Oh,
There's
look at
my
that.
there's my little orchid blooming like crazy.
Beautiful.
I just bought it. I hope it lives. It says don't put it in direct sun, so I have to be careful where I paint with it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Angela. Those are,
This one's going crazy.
yeah.
You've got the climate over there, right?
Oh, we have the sun. That's for sure. Yeah, I could never keep them alive in New York. There was never enough direct sun. Like the thing about no direct sun is it depends on what kind of no direct sun. A Chicago no direct sun is a little different. Look at this one. What is this? Ducks?
Let's see.
Duckies. Little
Oh,
duckies.
yeah, ducks.
I love it.
Wow, you're doing, these are beautiful.
Beautiful.
That's all I do. This one's
She's a professional. Everybody back up. She's a professional here. Oh, that's gorgeous.
pretty.
Look at the little ducky.
I can only say it's pretty because Baba did it.
That's right.
I'm lucky I'm his paintbrush. Keeps me busy.
Yeah.